Avatar: The Last Airbender, Avatar: The Burning Earth, Avatar: Into the Inferno, Avatar: Quest for Balance. Long ago, 3 of these video games released to pretty mid reviews. Then everything turned to when Quest for Balance dropped. Lucky for you, I took the L of playing all 4 games so you don't have to. Let's explore how this masterpiece of a show got absolutely butchered in these awful games. The first 3 games I'm going to talk about essentially follow the 3 books from the show, with the exception of this first game, and I'll touch on that in a bit. To start, the game dumps you in the Northern Water Tribe. Okay, so we already found Aang at this point, and we're just doing some waterbending training. Within several minutes, I came across this really important mechanic, focus move. Reveal hidden items. Press triangle. Oh, the vibration is on. But the focus move here is just a janky rhythm game. It's alright. And this became embarrassingly more complicated for me as more members joined my party. Like this situation, where you needed to bend rocks, but I used every other member except my earthbender. It was pretty cool that you could rotate between the 4 characters though. Could you please go to the trader and buy some wick? John Wick? The missions were simple fetch quests, which were crazy repetitive.
My lips were so chapped.
Yo, I'm weak.
We just spend all that time fetching you lip balm?
Oh, I have a stealth timer. There were some random ass stealth missions where you could turn invisible. I don't remember this happening in the show, but okay. Rescue the cub's mother. Was that not the mother? I did find myself completing some side quests too because there were some compelling reasons, like this guy who's trapped in the spirit world and wanted to be reunited with his mom, or this deer who I led back to their family. There's also mini games. Well, one mini game. So is it kind of like dominoes? Yeah, it is. Okay. Wait, I could see her hand though. Wait, what? While roaming around to complete missions, I came across shops which had a bunch of items and accessories which changed your character's stats. And at some of these vendors, you could also craft items, which were also unexpectedly cool. This was also where you bought potions that you have to pause the game and scroll to your inventory to use. How convenient. I learned after beating the game that there's actually a button for this. You know, with the atmosphere, this was more exploratory than I would have thought. But while the locations were cool, these NPC sounds made no sense.
Hi. Bye.
Want to talk to me? You did.
Hello, travelers. Bye.
Greetings.
Their voices do not match the dialogue at all.
Don't be a stranger.
For combat, your regular attack was square and R1 plus any of these shape combinations for these special moves. I did like the option for you to customize the character's moveset based on your playstyle. You can still get away with button mashing in this game though. Whatcha? Oh. It didn't even play out the whole animation. Okay. They even added this one slow motion move that didn't even look cool, and if anything made my whiffs look even worse. Now let's talk about the real MVP of this game. You'd think it'd be Aang, the main character, the avatar, master of all 4 elements? Oh, hold up. Why is Sokka kind of strong? Like, low-key more powerful than Aang. What's going on here?
Boomerang versus bending? Boomerang wins.
Now let's talk enemies. The variety was interesting. To start, we had wolves, more wolves, and dark wolves. Did I mention wolves? Well, things got better midway since they managed to sprinkle in some familiar creatures like canyon crawlers and Shearshoe. But at this point, the tedious battles weren't worth the reward, so I kind of zoomed past them. And at the end of each chapter, there was a boss. Most of them were easy, but then there were a couple, like this jailer boss battle, gave me Souls-like vibes. I'm not good at video games. And the boss at Omashu? What the heck is this? I kept getting cheesed by these rocks trapping me. Out of all the games, this version's story is the most different from the show. Of course, Aang's trying to learn waterbending, but the real enemy here isn't Admiral Zhao. It isn't.
Hello, Zuko here.
But it's actually Defeat the Machine. These machines were popping up all over, wreaking havoc, but who did they belong to?
Leon!
Leon.
We can
Yo.
get you out of here. Hurry, before the Fire Nation comes back.
There's no Fire Nation here, Avatar. They'd only get in the way of me working on my machines.
Your machines?
She's your syndrome, your Bolivar Trask. Basically, she has this hatred for the Benders. The machines felt very familiar, very Breath of the Wild, and the final battle being this Omnidroid that has mastered the 4 elements. It's a 2-stage battle where after Katara gets knocked out, Aang finally goes into the Avatar state, which is as OP as you'd expect. The saving grace of the Avatar The Last Airbender was these babies' first RPG elements. And honestly, this experience wasn't as torturous compared to what's to come. I'd give Avatar The Last Airbender a 4 out of 10. At first, I wanted to roast this game for its graphics, but then I realized I'm emulating all of these games using the PS2 versions, again, for all of them. So especially for this version of the game, the characters were looking extra sharp and I couldn't see all their details. So compared to actual PS2 gameplay, mine looked terrible. That combined with my low standards for graphics negates any criticisms that I had. Next, we have Burning Earth on the PS2, and I'm happy to report it's a step up from the first one. But let's be honest, a step up from Poo Poo is still, well, Poo Poo. You can play as more characters this time around. Toph, Zuko, Iroh, and even Jet. That's already a win. They also added different gameplay modes, like Appa Adventures, which felt like a Star Fox-inspired minigame. And there's something called Combat Arena, based on the Earth Rumble in the show, where characters go head-to-head. I'd love to see more of that, especially if they made it online in future games. This was easily the best addition. But the story here won't be everyone's cup of tea, because it's way more linear, and unlike the first game, this one definitely stays more true to the series. There's no side quests like the previous game, and barely anything to explore. It felt more arcade-like, being dropped into a sequence, playing it through, and adding some cutscenes for context. The story progressed quickly and was my shortest playthrough, clocking in around 5 hours. And overall, with the gameplay experience, the idea was there, execution mid. This game introduced more puzzles, which I'll touch on in a bit, that made the co-op experience more polished. I admit, the AI always worked with me, so I had no problems getting through these collaborative challenges. Which reminds me that instead of rotating between 4 characters, it was now 2, so that was kinda whack. The cities were almost empty, with barely any NPCs and no shops. Oh my gosh, this platforming is awful. Snapping to edges felt janky, and I pretty much gambled on which direction I would swing between these poles. Now combat, way more intuitive this time around. You can jump and dodge roll instead of blocking, and for attacks, there's square for melee and circle for long range, which felt okay. They added some Mortal Kombat style combos and stun combos, which were super fun to pull off. Square, circle, square, circle. Oh shit! Oh, I'm cooking. But I did miss the customizable specials from the previous game. Instead, there were these cards that you picked up which had you performing the special moves. Not a fan of this. A combination of the basic attacks from this game and the specials from the first would have been fun. There were these power-up moves that honestly I didn't even know how to use, so I just never touched it. See you later, sir. Yo, bro, go. Continuing the stealth mechanic. Yo, they dead got this from Wind Waker. I'd much rather touch on these puzzles because they're actually pretty fun. Oh my gosh, that was so much work. For sure, you've seen them before, like in Zelda, Jedi Fallen Order / Survivor. They had you solving a bunch of environmental challenges, which tickled my brain. But on the flip side, they dropped the bag, literally. Along with the equipped accessories, item shops were thrown out the window. You only collected items as you progressed. Disappointing. Potions were the only items in this game, and you could only get them through chests and enemies. You always knew when to use focus moves, and it's pretty clear which character to use them with. Oh yeah, the bosses, way too easy. Even the final Azula Zuko battle, which I kinda almost died in, was overall easy because Aang went into the Avatar state even though she had half a health bar left. The quote-quote hardest one was this swamp dude because it was less predictable, but again, easy. The art was a huge improvement this time around. Up close, all characters were distinguishable, so no complaints there. The environments looked good too, especially in places like the library and the Sand Canyon. Now that we covered Avatar: The Burning Earth, I give this a solid 6 out of 10. Now, you're probably thinking we covered 2 games and they weren't too terrible so far, but I promise you this next game was trash. We've got the third Avatar game, which in a nutshell put way more focus on puzzles than anything else.
Aang,
Oh yeah, Aang has hair.
you're awake.
Being released after the first 2 games, this one was miles better graphics-wise. The characters for 2008 though look pretty great. So yeah, they've definitely spent more budget here, but graphics alone cannot save a game. So do I have to defeat all these guys to move on in the story?
Let's keep going.
I guess so. Very linear storyline again, like the second game following the TV show. To me, when Aang and Zuko met the OG firebenders and did the dance, this was a key part in helping Aang learn firebending, so this portion not being included felt like a missed opportunity. Okay, we got a little overworld action. What? In this game, there's an overworld, so you have the freedom to choose your next chapter or if you want to replay any of the other ones. There's also Ember Island, which had the only shop in the game with 2 upgrades, and the theater for replaying cinematics. Glider's Paradise. Okay, so this is the extra stuff. The extras in this game focused around Aang's new glider, so there's a racing game, one where you destroy Fire Nation balloons, and a free ride mode. With more modes, this feels like a step up from Appa Adventures in the last game. Now on to the puzzles. There were really some challenging puzzles, which needed a lot of brain cells to figure out. Maybe it's because my brain rot turned to skibbity toilet level sort of bad. I spent way too much time overthinking them. It's literally telling you the order 1, 2, 3, 4, and I've been doing 2, 3, 1, 4, thinking that was the order. Oh my, I would have never figured that out. Here's where things started to eat. Ending basics. Oh my gosh. Yo, this was terrible. And the #1 culprit for all of this? This guy. Now, I didn't play the Wii version, still went with the PS2 here, but they wanted to take advantage of those cutting-edge motion controls. Alright, that sounds pretty cool, but not for people who didn't have a Wiimote. Oh my gosh, I'm getting motion sickness. Oh man. I'm not gonna use this freaking bending unless I really have to. Having to focus on this stupid janky cursor while getting clapped by the Fire Nation was not a good time. Same goes with puzzle solving. You think the developers would have improved upon the customizable moveset from the 2006 game or the satisfying combos from the previous one. No, they gutted all that and instead assigned square to your light attack and holding R1 plus moving the right stick around as your ranged attack. Every battle felt one-dimensional and tedious regardless of who my enemies were, and I cheesed waterbending and this freeze move just to power my way through the battles. Also, Sokka again was my go-to because his kit was the easiest one to use.
Boomerang versus bending? Boomerang wins.
And on top of this, defense was non-existent since there wasn't a dodge roll or block available. And the only targeting system was, of course, the stupid janky cursor. Did I miss that? Also, RPG elements from the first game, still no luck. The only way to get health back was by picking up potions. And unlike the first game where you were able to escape from battles that wasted your time, I had to endure every single one. The boss fights? Yo, why is this guy taking my wind up the ass? Were nothing memorable. Well, besides this traumatic fight against the clock on boiling rock. Oh my god.
We've got Sokka. We've got to stay with the gondola. Sokka, we've got to stay with the gondola.
We get it, Zuko. Like, damn. What? In this cursed Azula battle on the airship, again, the darn controls got me missing the water. Oh no, this is gonna be a struggle. But wait. Aren't we on the last book, meaning Sozin's Comet and facing the Phoenix King?
Oh my god! Okay, it's happening!
Instead of, you know, unleashing the 4 elements Aang mastered, you don't get that. Wait, what? Instead, you get to switch to Katara because, hey, she just beat Azula on the airship and randomly took a hop and a skip from the wreckage to help Aang. These fights didn't happen simultaneously, right? Never mind that the master of all 4 elements is using a single element for this entire battle. Meanwhile, they're on top of this singular rock the entire time. That's it? That is the boss battle? 6 hours? Leading up to whatever the fuck that was? Bro, that should have been the tutorial. It's alright though, we have Quest for Balance to redeem this battle. Look, this game had potential. The foundation was already there from the previous games and the puzzle improvement showed that they had the capacity to deliver. But clearly the devs shit the bed. No upgrade system, no side quests, barely any NPC interactions, and no real depth to the mechanics. Into the Inferno was an aggravating 3 out of 10. My score would have been higher if I played the Wii version. Avatar Quest for Balance started off with 3 of the White Lotus members in their natural habitat playing Pai Sho, which was rudely interrupted by this lady, a director of the Ba Sing Se players who basically wants to get the record straight about Aang's story. Since the Ember Island players did such a terrible job, but it depends on who you ask. The story follows our 3 silver foxes shooting the shit as they talk about Aang's adventures as she transcribes it. That's what you play through. Before we move forward, let's talk about price, because I paid way less than full price for this game, so seeing it on the Steam store for $49.99 That's straight up robbery. If you're even considering buying this game, please do not buy it at full price. This game is supposed to be an all-encompassing summary of the entire series, so it makes sense that you can't play through all the chapters. But the ones that they chose to make playable versus the ones they skimmed over through the storytelling does not make sense. Damn, I can't have like an animation here? Bro, I can't read. This is too much text. When it comes to graphics, I have low standards. Some people said it looks like a PS3 game, and yeah, even I agree with that. But wait, there's even more playable characters now. You get to play as Suki, the Blue Spirit, Boomy, and there's even a quote-quote free mode, which gives the impression that you could eventually play with all the characters, so I got Lego Star Wars vibes. So yeah, more characters and fan-favorite locations, not bad. There are some qualities about these characters that took me off guard though, like Azula looking like she's part of the Real Housewives cast. Most of the characters had some weird animations going on. Yo, he's moonwalking. Katara and Suki had these awkward runs, and the sound effects, again, were so off. And it's going down. Yo, these sound effects. Why does it sound like one brace broke? We were also lied to because after beating the game, I looked into this free mode only to find out that I couldn't actually switch any of the characters in my party. While I'm on the topic of separate modes, there's also the Spirit Trials. Just a bunch of bending challenges to complete. More of you hardcore gamers would enjoy this one. To blow harder is crazy. Pause. And resume. The game included a more commonly used nowadays skill tree, which involved pie show tiles scattered throughout the maps to fill up the tree. I found this kind of neat. Side quests made a comeback and didn't feel completely useless for once. He made an appearance in the earlier games, but the cabbage guy from Fortnite was a running gag throughout, where you can destroy his cart and hear his famous cry.
My cabbages!
Let's talk about combat. Thankfully, they didn't optimize this game for motion controls, but it's still your classic spam to win system. You could lock on more consistently, but overall, again, pretty ass. And combos were back, but very, very limited. I wish there was more variety like in the earlier games. Still, I had the choice of up to 3 characters at a time, and it finally didn't seem like water was the most OP element. Now, the combat in waves, not a fan. You'd get stuck in the corner sometimes, pressed up against the invisible boundary thingy, and because defense was non-existent again, I would awkwardly jump or switch characters in this situation. Also, there were so many battles where I found us enclosed in the space of a New York City apartment. Out of all the games, the shop was the most useful in this one because of the pie show tiles and scrolls for upgrades. The puzzles in this game were again the highlight. Each one that took place in these shrines unlocked a new ability for navigating the real world. Basically, the focus moves of this game. These challenges were definitely an extension of Into the Inferno, but even trickier because there are more elements and more people needed to solve them. I found myself in a trance moving these boxes around, and it kind of did end up being meditative. Mostly. I hate this puzzle. This puzzle sucks ass. Honestly, the shrines were the best part of the whole game. If they'd packaged these levels as a separate mobile game, it might have been better received. Damn, that's sad. Anyway, speaking of mobile games, there were these mini games that was basically a shittier version of Subway Surfer, and even this ostrich dash to Lake Lao guy reminded me of the Hannah Montana game. This is not a compliment, by the way. As for the writing, nothing really caught my eye, but then again, who's trying to read all these walls of text? It's quiet in here, too quiet. Yo, not them ripping off Shrek.
It's quiet. Too quiet.
Now, on to my favorite part, bugs and boss fights, because I promise you, there's a connection. To name my favorites, we got Zuko waterbending, Tapestry's doing whatever this is, shoveling the air, and not the crash, but I can laugh off those quirks. The final boss, not so much. To touch on the earlier bosses though, here's what I had to say about them, and this pretty much sums up my whole experience. The freaking puzzles are harder than the bosses. How is that possible? After another easy battle against Azula, probably easier than the battle in Into the Inferno, I finally took on the Phoenix King. Wait, Fire Lord? You're not gonna say the Phoenix King? You're not gonna put some respect on his name? Compared to Game 3, this fight actually had a pulse to it with its multiple stages. Then I got to this part with the lightning. Why am I stuck? Yo, imagine paying $50 for this. Could not be me. Yeah, so on 3 separate occasions, I found myself stuck. I will not hide behind that one rock. Let's try hiding behind this one.
It's a trap.
No. Yo, what am I supposed to do here? I can't defeat the Fire Lord because I can't move. Just don't press deflect behind the rocks and you'll be fine. That's what the bug is. I'm pretty positive. I am not going to test that. This may not be the best plan, but it ended up working for me. So thankfully, I made it through this fight. Or did I? Usually I'd be hyped for this, but now I'm like, oh, is there another bug happening? Now you could just button mash and, you know, call it a day. So I beat the game. Got the achievement for it, and you know it'd be funny if I showed you a graph of how many people fell off during the course of this game. Notice that dip between the tutorial and the first boss fight. Avatar Quest for Balance, easy 0 out of 10, alright? Especially if you paid full price. Now, I did a little bit of something else, so I got it for less than $10, which means I'll bump it up to a 2 out of 10. Again, that's pushing it. Let's just not acknowledge its existence like that up. Nope. Does not exist. Look, I get it. Some of you might have great nostalgia from playing these Avatar games. Let's take off the rose-colored lenses real quick and admit that these games were terrible, all right? And I know also, like 10 years from now, some Gen Alpha kid or whatever generation we're on is gonna do like a retrospective on Quest for Balance, defending its greatness, not invalidating their experience. But for the rest of us, none of these games did the justice that Avatar: The Last Airbender truly deserves. Now, we have people like Elka Gaming, who's been working on a fan-made game for years now, and that, in its current state, on all of these games. And with a AAA Avatar game announced, I really hope that this game gets the love and care that we've all felt while watching this series. What would you like to see in an Avatar game? Let me know. And if you enjoyed this video, here's another one just like it.